Waiting for the live button to catch up. Welcome, everybody, to Mild's Culture Plate. It is Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. And it has been a hell of a week, folks. Hopefully everyone out there is having a pretty good laid-back weekend. I want to know... here, let me share the link in one more place really fast. In fact, let me do it on the computer. It might be quicker. Okay, here we go. And of course, it's not showing me as logged in. So, how's everybody doing this weekend? Hopefully, everybody's got a laid back weekend going on. Let me know in the chat if you have seen Black Adam yet. So, I went to the movies today, and I saw the Black Adam movie. And as you could tell from the shelves behind me, I'm a little bit of a DC Comics fan. And I have really enjoyed a lot of the DC Extended Universe movies when most moviegoers and most action film kind of people, most fantasy genre kind of people, haven't been real big fans of the DC Extended Universe, especially the Snyderverse wing of those films. However, I went and saw Black Adam today, and I went into it kind of not expecting much. I felt the trailer really lacked any hints at the plot. It was just barely show you things from the characters, really show Dwayne Johnson a bunch, and, we didn't really get a vibe for what the story was going to be like. And so I was skeptical. I was skeptical that this movie was an attempt to take everything that's happened in the DC Extended Universe before, kind of say, sleight of hand, don't look at what's in that hand, look at what's in this hand. We're no longer doing the Justice League. Now we're going to introduce you to the Justice Society, right? And that was kind of my vibe from the trailers and going in to see this film. And I gotta say, I was not wrong, but I was not correct either. This wasn't the whole movie. The Justice Society played a major part of it, and honestly, it's what made the movie potentially good, and it's what made the movie potentially bad, because honestly, what they've done is they've given you an extra 5 characters that have very little to do with the plot. And they're like, here, have no backstory. They just exist. And the only way that they tie that into anything, and again, if you're into the comic books, if you followed Justice Society comics before, you obviously know way more than the average moviegoer. But for the sake of argument, let's say this is an average moviegoer. The only movies they've ever seen and the only DC comic stuff they've ever seen is the DCEU movies. Well, you've got this character, Amanda Waller, who makes a cameo in this. And you have these previous movies where she manages the Suicide Squad. But in this movie, for some reason, somehow, some way, we don't know why, she's able to just pick up a phone call and tell the Justice Society what to do. So as a DC fan and a moviegoer who has been following these films, that's the backstory we get. We get pretty much the same backstory we got for the two Suicide Squad movies. It's just Amanda Waller sees a threat and sends a team of attack dogs after it. Which I guess that's her role in all of the DC universes. Like, that's the Amanda Waller thing to do. Like, she's really the sub-villain of most of these movies, especially the two Suicide Squad movies. But in this one, yeah, she sees this threat in Black Adam and she sends the Justice Society to do her dirty work. Now, if you have followed Black Adam and some of the Justice Society stuff in the comic books, if you have followed some of the story about Black Adam, you know that he's kind of the spiritual and symbolic king of a Middle Eastern nation. But if you haven't seen the comics, going into this blind, if you haven't read some of the comics and understand some of the lore behind it, we start off where these characters are being oppressed by Intergang, where the entire nation is essentially being run by corporate thugs. And it's almost a very on-the-nose allegory for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And for someone who doesn't really like a lot of politics in my comics, it does kind of seem a little overt. To where, you know, very Middle Eastern country are praying for a hero to help throw off their oppressors, right? Anyway, so let's take a pause right there. I am gonna pour myself a glass of whiskey here. Tonight we got Basil Hayden's Dark Rye. I've drank this before on the stream, and I just kind of was gonna keep it laid back tonight, so I'm gonna drink a little of the Basil Hayden's here. And then I'll continue my review of Black Adam. Anyway, so I'm hoping this isn't too spoilerish for y'all. I'm trying to avoid major spoilers and just kind of talk about the vibes I'm getting from it, and talk about it from a way where if you knew just the basic synopsis of the movie and some of the advertising, that you could understand what the hell I'm talking about. I love my ryes. That's what I needed tonight. We don't even really get a true villain in the movie until about 80% in. And this is part of the problem I have with the movie, is we're sold that this is a Justice Society versus Black Adam movie, and sure, Black Adam's an anti-hero though, and he's kind of the hero of the movie. He's the title character. And we're kind of introduced and focused on him. And so you have these two groups of side characters, right? You have the love interest and civilians, and this child who's looking up to Black Adam as a hero. And then you have the Justice Society and this team of characters, which, when I first watched the first trailer, just by the costumes alone, I'm thinking, okay, we've got obviously Hawkman, Dr. Fate, and then we've got what looks like the Atom and Red Tornado. Completely wrong. It's Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Atom Smasher and Cyclone. I think that's her name. Anyway, after looking at the Wikipedia, it's Red Tornado's granddaughter, like in the comics. So this character does exist, but in nothing I've seen. But again, I don't follow Justice Society as close as I do the Justice League and Batman. So some of this stuff I'm not deep into the lore about, but what I have seen, the movie kind of gives me a different take on it, and I'm not sure if I like it or not. What I don't like is we don't get any backstory on these characters. So one of the vibes I got going into this movie is this was going to be a prequel so that we could have a Hawkman movie later. And after seeing this film, I'm about double. I was about 30% sure, now I'm about 60% sure that this movie is just a vehicle to kind of get people interested in a Hawkman movie later. Before the movie started, I saw they did have a trailer for the new Shazam sequel, which looks pretty fucking good. And here's the fucked up part. If you don't get that trailer before the movie, and you don't remember every little detail about the first Shazam movie, it may not occur to you that the wizard and the wizardry and the powers of the gods in Shazam have anything to do with the same stuff that you're looking at in Black Adam, other than the fact that he uses the word Shazam to transform. And they never really explain that. And this is these are the most fucked up parts of this movie, is you have all of these characters with all of these detailed backstories, right? But you get none of it. None of it. You get a detailed history of Black Adam, the man, but not so much the man with powers and where the powers came from and the lore about the wizards. You get a little touch of it, but not enough. Not enough to matter. Not enough to tie it into Shazam or to tie it into the rest of the DCEU. But they do tell a really good story about the man behind the powers. So it has that going for it. It is action-packed. It's got some decent special effects. And one thing I will say is I really liked Pierce Brosnan in the role of Dr. Fate. I do think there are other actors who could have done it better. I do think the way the role was written, and actually let me just go ahead and state for the fact, all superpowered characters in this movie were written very robotically. Very clunky, chunky dialogue. All of the regular human characters were written with such humanity, with such intricacies, and you know, there were parts of it that were really well written, but there were parts of it that it's like they were going for campiness, but instead decided to keep the characters mysterious, so you can't tell how campy it really is supposed to be. But overall, the action is worth it. The story's pretty good. It's missing a lot of backstory lore that I'm hoping, if they make a Hawkman movie, or maybe later down the road a Shazam versus Black Adam movie, which, you know, I don't know if you saw the spoilers. There's an after credits scene that has a cameo that hints at some Black Adam and Superman stuff. Don't know if that's actually a plan for a direction of the DCEU. But also, in context of the whole, like I said, the allegory for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, then to see Superman play the hero of the West versus the hero of the Middle East thing, knowing some of the allegories Superman's backstory has to some Jewish culture stuff, it's a little creepy. But neither here nor there. Let's move on from that little side observation. But overall, there's one part where you're watching it and you're thinking, is this movie about to end and set up the climax for another movie? Because you build up to this little climax, and then it almost seems like the movie's over. But then the characters have a lot of plot development conversations. And so you're thinking that this is setting up for the sequel. And then you get another 20 minutes of movie where an actual climax and an actual villain appears and things actually happen. And so it's weird. So it's almost like you've watched a complete movie that didn't have a big enough climax. And then another finale starts. And so that little 20-minute interlude or 10 to 15-minute interlude of people just talking and not a whole lot happening and plot points being tied up just to be untied later, it drags and you could fall asleep. So that's one more big strike against this movie is, yeah. So you've gone through this whole thing where there hasn't been a lot of information revealed. You come to a little climax, and then things seem to be tied up. But then the characters just keep talking and talking and talking till more action happens. And so that little lull, that little too long, too much chit chatter, too much. And again, they chit chatter and they're not really saying a whole lot. But then eventually you get the big finish you're looking for in a big superhero movie, and you get the payoff. You get the payoff. But that little dip is a little too long in my opinion. But for the most part, I don't know if it sounds like this to you, but it seems like I'm more nitpicking little shit. Overall, the writing's good. The movie's good. I'm going to say that right now. The movie's good. I know it's getting mixed reviews. And I know I'm a DC fanboy. I'm not coming at this from a DC fanboy perspective because, frankly, I'm not a big Justice Society person. But, and if you could ignore the 3 or 4 little nitpicky things that I've said, the fact that there's little backstory, the fact that they've just kind of pigeonholed Amanda Waller in there to kind of take the place of a backstory and give you this feeling like, okay, well, these are just... Amanda Waller just has connections and these people just exist, and that's fine. That's all the backstory we need. If you can kind of ignore those little nitpicky things, then what you're left with is a pretty good action film. And again, Dwayne Johnson isn't one of my favorite actors, and he does the thing where he just kind of says and talks like a badass and acts like a badass. And if you go into the movie expecting that, that's what you're going to get. He's got a deeper backstory than you're used to with some of his other characters. Probably one of the biggest backstories he's had since Scorpion King, which is very, very similar characters, by the way. In terms of, you got Middle Eastern history versus Egyptian history and this whole resurrected and yeah, so... very similar backstories for these two characters. But for the most part, if you go into it expecting Dwayne The Rock Johnson, to be Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and if you don't go into it expecting a big action-packed, a big plot-filled superhero movie, you go into it expecting this movie setting up for other movies. We're not going to get a lot of backstory, and it's about the action. Then the backstory you get of Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character, Shazam, or not Shazam, but Black Adam, might be enough to carry you into, oh, okay, well, this is a pretty good movie. And honestly, if they would have left the Justice Society out of the movie entirely and just had some random. If they would have put the Suicide Squad in it going up against him, it probably would have made more sense. But because these characters are a little more tied together in the comic books, I feel like Warner Brothers wrote this for the 50 people who are really big followers of some of their more team up book style stuff. And that's not your average movie going audience. Not everyone knows who Hawkman is, and not everyone has followed the lore of the comics where Hawkman is facing Black Adam. I honestly, I'm a big DC fan, and I don't follow those comics. I don't know about y'all, but they gave me enough story where I was satisfied. I got a plot and a climax, got a lot of action, some decent dialogue, a nice heroic arc with a little good plot twist, and then in the end it left me wanting more. I don't know if that was just the little post-credits teaser thing. I don't think it was, because I was kind of wanting more when the credits were rolling before that, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, if they do anything with these characters next. I'm kind of actually hoping for a Hawkman solo movie. I think it might not be that good, but it left me hoping, wanting to see more from this character, and I think that's just because they didn't give me enough backstory in this movie, but we'll see. Overall, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I would have gave it a 7.5 or 8 out of 10 if I would have felt more connected to these characters. It's like, okay, so there's this ongoing plot thread between Dr. Fate and Hawkman where you're supposed to feel some kind of emotional attachment between the two characters, but because we have no backstory, we don't know what that's based on, and we the audience feel like we're supposed to give a shit, but we don't. So I think that was a big failure of the movie, and that was a big, huge plot point that escalates toward the end of the movie, and then we're left kind of like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, and it is what it is. I recommend you go see it if you're interested at all in these kind of superhero-y action films. Like I said, you kind of got to ignore no backstory. You got to ignore the pigeonholing of Amanda Waller in the movie. You kind of got to ignore the allegory for the Palestinian conflict. But yeah, other than that, very action-packed movie. And then that little plot dip about 20 minutes before the end of the movie. It seems to go on a little longer than it needs to. Ignore those 4 things and then you got a 10. But because those 4 things really kind of knocked the movie back for me, I'm giving it a 7. Let me have another little sip of my Basil Hayden's Dark Rye here. And now I'll talk about Alex Jones. So, $965 million isn't enough. Almost $1 billion isn't enough. People, the court, and the opposing attorneys, and the plaintiffs are now in the media saying they want $2.5 trillion. Why not a gorillion? Why not a made-up number? Why not just say infinity? Infinity dollars. I mean, this has reached a point of ridiculousness. There's a tweet I saw earlier from Viva Frey where he says that this is almost, what they're asking for is almost 3 times as much as the reparations that were paid after the Armenian genocide. Let that sink in. You can genocide an entire culture of people and not be responsible for the same amount of damage that Alex Jones did by saying that some parents were crisis actors. Like, that was more damage than genocide of an entire culture. That, hey, you're an actor. You're fake. You're an actor. You're not a real parent. That was more damaging to the world than genociding a culture. Let that sink in. So at this point, and again, I understand people hate Alex Jones. I get it. But he didn't shoot those kids. He just said, you're fake. And that was years ago. Are these people really losing trillions of dollars of money because people think they're fake? I don't think these people would have saw trillions of dollars in their lives. Unless they're, maybe they're going into the anti-gun lobby, and then, but I still don't see how this is damage. In order for it to be a legal damages award, you have to show that this is what I was damaged. But no, that's not what's going on here. It's just, we just have to punish Alex. He didn't kill the kids, but we got to punish him anyway because we're suffering, and you mocked us while we were suffering. You lied about us while we were suffering. So now we got to make you pay. Not a single mass shooter has had to pay this kind of money. And like I said, the Armenian genocide. Why do I keep saying genocide? My lips just keep wanting to shut when I'm saying it. Armenian genocide was not worth nearly as much money as they think Alex Jones needs to be punished for. We're sending billions of dollars to help the Ukrainians fight their war against the Russians. But we still haven't sent them $2.5 trillion. So a war against Russia is not as damaging as Alex Jones telling families of murder victims, hey, we think you might be an actor. And a jury in Connecticut, not a chance for anything remotely resembling an air of fairness. Not gonna do it. Not gonna happen. No chance in hell. Like I said, at this point, why stop at 2.5 trillion? Just say a gorillion, a quadrillion, infinity money. Just, if there's money that exists in the universe, Alex Jones, you're responsible to go get that money and give it to these parents. And give it to this FBI agent. And give it to anyone else who was remotely involved in the tragedies that happened in Newtown, Connecticut. Go sell your kidneys. Go sell your organs. Go sell your house. Go sell everything. Alex Jones, you don't deserve lungs to breathe. Go sell them and give the money to the families of Newtown, Connecticut. Because we don't like you. Literally worse. You saying I think you're an actor is literally worse than rape, war, genocide. Literally the worst thing that has ever happened in the history of this planet. Worse than 9/11, worse than January 6th, which January 6th is the new 9/11, which, yeah, I know. That's a joke too. But if you believe Alex Jones seriously deserves to owe these people $2.5 trillion, I'm going to call you a sociopath and say that you probably need to get on some medication. And that's not because I like Alex Jones and you don't. That's because if you seriously think about this in a rational, reasonable, serious way, there's no way these families were damaged to the tune of more than the entire disaster aid of this country of the last 10 years. More than the COVID stimulus packages. More than the Ukraine stimulus packages, and more than the Armenian genocide reparations. Alex Jones said some words. And if you think that that's more deserving than people who've had their families, whole families, genocided or upended by hurricanes and earthquakes and war, Alex Jones calling you an actor is more dangerous and serious and worth a lot more money for your pain and suffering than any of the above things I just mentioned, then you're a sociopath and deserve to be on medication. Take another sip of my Basil Hayden's here. I'll go on to the next topic. Steve Bannon. Love him or hate him, I'm not a big fan. But the man got 4 months in jail for telling Congress no during their January 6th political witch hunts. He says he's going to appeal, and they've issued a stay where while he's on appeal, he doesn't have to go to jail yet. But he's been sentenced to 4 months for a political witch hunt, for telling Congress no. He's considered in contempt of Congress. That's what he's officially been charged and convicted with, because he told Congress, I'm not going to participate in your January 6th witch hunt. He could have obeyed the subpoena, showed up, and declared Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. I'm not going to answer any questions. And that would have been perfectly legal, well within his rights. Instead, he claimed immunity. They told him he didn't have immunity. And then he's like, well, I'm not going to show up anyway. And this is where we're at. You tell Congress no. Now, there are other people in the political realm who have told Congress no over the years. Haven't spent a day in jail. People who've told congressmen and women they were going to get back to them on certain topics of serious importance, and then just didn't. Those people didn't spend time in jail. The Department of Justice just didn't go after those people. And that's fine. Again, I'm not a fan of Steve Bannon. But 4 months in jail for telling Congress no. And again, I hope that his appeal is successful and he never has to spend a day in there. But we'll see. Anyway, that's the update on that. If you disagree with either of those two takes, Alex Jones or Steve Bannon, or if you have your own take on it that I might not have thought of an interesting little detail, leave me a comment below. Or come in here in the chat and tell me I'm wrong. Or shout at me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is down in the description. Moving on. I did a rant the other day somewhat about Darrell Brooks. Since then, he has started his case in chief, and I don't know how many of you are following the Darrell Brooks trial. This is the individual that was in Waukesha, Wisconsin, got into an altercation with his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. The cops were called. He got in his truck. He started driving down the street. Saw a barricade, swerved to avoid the barricade, nearly hit a police officer, and continued down the road to where he entered a Christmas parade and proceeded to run over and strike, in some way make contact with up to 60 to 70 people, and killed 6. Seriously maimed or injured over 20, I believe. Like serious maiming injuries. And then, yeah, like I said, struck or made contact with up to 60 or 70. And so if you watched my last program, I kind of went off on how he was making a mockery and how he deserves to be treated like shit. And how I kind of respected his disrespect for the state. And how I kind of respected the concept of what you call a sovereign citizen theory. I kind of respect the idea that we're going to come up with a theory that the government may not have authority, but the behavior I saw in the last 2 days of the trial, I really want to put a focus on the behavior of Judge Doro, George Jennifer Doro. And let me see if I could find some shorter clips on it. I may have to go to Law and Cuck. Let's see here. Looks like Law Nerd Clips put out something recently, but yeah, I think I'll do Law and Cuck here. Let's see here. Come on. Let me break this out of the window and full screen it and bring it up here. Okay. I want to show you the way this man has behaved in court. Okay, let's do this. So this is how this man has been behaving in court.
You don't call yourself a judge as much as bias you could put up in here. Don't even tell the jury the truth.
Can you hear that? He's mouthing.
No integrity whatsoever. None. None.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated.
You notice he's not sitting down.
I would like an update on whether Mr. Brooks filled out a subpoena for Dawn Woods and provided that to the state. Has that been done?
No, we haven't received anything, Your Honor, and obviously she can appear here voluntarily if Mr. Brooks wants to arrange that. I don't believe a subpoena is necessary. We had subpoenaed her, and she was under a state subpoena. So I know that at least some point she had notice, but our position would be, Your Honor, that we will not be responsible in any fashion for producing Miss Woods.
Okay, so if you're not familiar with what's going on here, there was an incident that happened in court a couple days ago where he was questioning a police officer. And the police officer had been shown an exhibit that was a photograph of the backyard, I think the backyard, of Daryl Brooks's mother's house. The police officer said he recognized that house because he had been there before and questioned Daryl Brooks's mother. And then, so the next day, Daryl Brooks came to court mouthing off all kinds of things about how, yeah, he wants that cop back because he lied about his mama. His mama said she ain't talked to no cop and this and that. So now he wants to impeach the credibility of this police officer with the idea that his mother claimed she ain't talked to no cop. So now, in order to do that, someone has to call his mother to the stand, which obviously has to be him. And he's in the middle of his case in chief, by the way. Excuse me. And so now there's this question of, do they need a subpoena for his mom? That she's the Dawn Woods they're talking about here. And so this is the prosecutor now saying, we don't believe we should have to subpoena her. We used to have a subpoena for her, but we don't think we need to produce another subpoena for her. If Daryl Brooks wants to call her, he can invite her to testify, and then if she wants to, she will. So here we go.
Mr. Brooks talks to her on a daily basis. If he wants her here, he can produce her on Monday.
Yeah, they ain't got to worry about that.
So I just wanted to know, because I know a subpoena form was filled out.
If
So
I want her to be here, she gonna be here.
I agree with
So
the
just
state
know
that,
that.
Imagine talking about your mother like that. If I want her to be here, she'll be here. Do you have that much control over your mother? Now, granted, if I was in court on trial for my life, my mother, rest her soul, would have been there. Regardless. She probably would have been sitting behind me every single day. I don't know if she's in the courtroom right now, but she would have been sitting there every single day. I wouldn't have needed to ask. But again, I wouldn't have, if I would have needed to ask, then I wouldn't assume I have that kind of power. And I wouldn't be shouting things like, oh, I'm a big man. She gonna be there if I tell her to be there. No. Again, this is him playing hardcore.
she could certainly appear.
It ain't even got to be no arrangement. All I got to say is come. She gonna come.
All I gotta say is come, and she gonna come.
That simple.
Mr. Brooks, do you intend to call her as a witness? Because I'm directing you to have her
We
here
said
at
all
9
that. We said all
a.m.
that at the
Here we
beginning,
go.
man.
Yes or no
Like, I don't
question.
even-
Yes or no question. All you had to do is say, yeah, I plan on calling her. No, I don't plan on calling her. And no, it really wasn't covered at the beginning of this day. It was brought up, but it was never confirmed that she would be added to his witness list.
I want to be in here that much longer. Just do what you got to do so I can get up out of here. I'm tired of being in the courtroom that has no integrity whatsoever.
Integrity.
How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of some
I need to
things.
make a record too.
You don't
When
need
am
to.
I going to get the chance to do that?
All right, I need to make a record. He's being removed to the other courtroom. He is yelling at me. He's not going to let me make a statement or make the record that I need to make.
I'm finna
He
leave
hasn't
anyway,
sat
so
down
what do it
for
matter? You
the
can
better
hold me
part
in
of 2
contempt
hours.
all you want. You can hold me in contempt all you want.
I'm not
All
holding
you
you
gotta
in
do is tell me
contempt.
if it's criminal or civil, so I can hit
All right,
you with you.
I need to
with
clear
what you
the
know is
courtroom because
coming.
I do need
I'm
to
gonna give
make-
you what you know is coming.
I need him to go to the
If
other
it's civil-
courtroom because I do need to put some
if
things
it's
on the
civil,
record. The record should
Where's the
reflect
contract between you
that
and I?
Mr. Brooks
If it's
is
criminal,
yelling at me.
what is the crime?
He is.
Who makes the claim? And what
He
is
is.
the...
I will make the record when we get back. I will step off, but Mr. Brooks, you're being
It ain't
taken
no,
to the
it
next
ain't no Mr.
courtroom.
Brooks. Don't try to address me
Thank
like
you.
that, like we cool. You don't have no integrity. How can you even call yourself a judge? Making tacit agreements, being biased. You did.
And this is where it cuts off. So, yeah, fuck you, lawn cuck. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more here. This was earlier in the day.
Back.
Mr. Brooks,
So I'm the only one. I got one.
Mr.
I got one
Brooks.
ear that work, and I heard that.
this
Come on,
is
man.
to benefit
Come on, man.
you so
No,
that
it's
you
not.
understand
Ain't none of
your
this to benefit me,
witness
so let's be
has
clear
a
about
prior
that.
record.
Your Honor, when I leave the table, I'm away from the courtroom and I have to elevate my voice. This is the
So she had to
alleged
elevate her
record of
voice
Abel
just for
Lescott.
that.
Stop talking.
Come on, man. Like, I don't know who y'all be thinking y'all fooling. I accept the value in return for value this document.
One more interruption and you're going to be removed to the next courtroom.
That's what you want to do anyway.
It's not what I want to do. Do not interrupt Attorney Opera.
So can
Your
you
Honor,
tell,
I
can you
believe he
explain-
has 7 prior criminal convictions via OWI.
So I want to say, yeah, see, he pounded his fist on the table. He's acting aggro. Now, I just want to clarify what she's talking about right now isn't Daryl Brooks. She's currently talking about a witness that he wants to call who has a criminal background from 2007 and prior that are a couple of, DUIs. So let's make this clear. These are DUIs. These aren't necessarily things, crimes of dishonesty, right? These aren't things that could be impeached as, oh, you're lying to us. You lied back then. No, these aren't things. But someone's criminal record does matter in a trial, so they're being brought up. And anyway, so here's how he's reacting to this.
OWI 2nd from 1997, an OWI 3rd from 1997, an OWI 4th from 2003, criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
Right, I need to take
Look
a
at his
break.
face.
This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared. And we're
So let's break this down here. Okay, go away, lawn cuck. All right. Let's break this down. One of the things I didn't show there, this was 2 of 5 incidents that happened yesterday in this trial. And there was a point in the trial where they had exhausted all of the witnesses that were there in the morning except one. There was one witness left, and he had a certain order he wanted to call him in. And his next witness wasn't available yet. So this is more of the delay stalling tactic bullshit that he's been doing. But he wasn't ready yet. He didn't want to call the person who was left to call, which, by the way, was his ex-girlfriend, and he wound up having to call her anyway. And then, so they got into some topics that had been off the table due to pretrial motions in limine. These topics could have led to certain testimony that had to do with his history. Now, mind you, when all of this stuff happened last November, he was out on bail for trying to hit her with the SUV. The same car he ran people over in. And so they don't want to bring this evidence in that might taint the jury to the crimes he's on trial for now. Because this evidence would be very prejudicial. The idea that he's already tried to commit violence with the same car would be very prejudicial to a jury. It's prejudicial to me. I think it's fucking fascinating that this man is claiming not guilty, claiming he'd never do such a thing. And yet, he's done it to his girlfriend. So, she's on the stand, and he's trying to elicit evidence. He's trying to introduce evidence that he has received pictures of her. And the prosecution's like, well, where did these pictures come from? And he's like, well, obviously they came from her. And they're like, well, you have no proof of that. And he's like, well, I got letters. Okay, produce the letters. I ain't got to. Well, that's not the way the evidentiary process works. And so then he starts blowing up and making a scene and all this and that. So then the judge tells him, okay, you need to stop. We need a new line of questioning. You can't go down that path anymore. And he just keeps mouthing. He won't ask a new question. He's just mouthy. And the judge is like, okay, well, we're done with this witness then. Call your next witness. Or I think maybe they went to lunch, then they came back. Yeah, I think that's what happened. I think they went to lunch, then they came back, and she told him to call his next witness. And instead, he got mouthy with the judge. The judge sent him to the second courtroom with the audio and the video, told him to call a witness, and he kept getting mouthy. Wouldn't answer questions, was like, well, you're holding me in contempt. The judge's like, I'm not holding you in contempt, but I need you to answer my yes or no question. Or I need you to call a witness. And he won't call a witness. And then she's like, well, would you like to come back over here? Well, I never want to be let out of here. Blah, blah, blah. I asked a yes or no question. You got to answer it with a yes or no. No, I ain't got to answer with nothing. Blah, blah, and just being aggressive and not answering the questions. And so then there comes a point where she makes the threat. If you're not going to tell me yes or no, if you're not going to call another witness, then I'm going to assume your case is finished and submitted, and we will move on to the next phase of the trial, which would be either a rebuttal case from the state, and if they don't have a rebuttal case, then it'd go to closing arguments, and the trial would be over. She had a chance to shut this shit down permanently. She threatened it. But then she says, well, I'll give you one more chance to call another witness. And then he doesn't do it. And then she says, well, I'll state one more time for the record, call a witness. He doesn't call a witness. She takes another break. Then they come back from break. And instead of following fucking through, instead, she orders him to be brought back into the courtroom and then says, would you like to call your next witness? And then he calls his next witness. He was that fucking close from this trial just being like, all right, fuck it. You forfeited your right to defend yourself by being a jackass. And all this bullshit gamery he pulled was almost brought to an end, but the judge didn't have the balls to pull the trigger. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because quite frankly, I'm sick of Judge Jennifer Doro in this trial. She's got no guts. She keeps saying she's going to do something, and then gives him another chance. I mean, these are participation trophy fucking parenting tactics that she's taking with a man who murdered 6 people and has abused women several times and ran over nearly 60 people. And she's treating him like a kid who didn't eat their vegetables and, oh, you can have the ice cream anyway. You get another chance. Even though you've shown you don't give a shit about your chances, you're just here to cause chaos. So Judge Jennifer Doro gets my Asshole of the Week award. You know, it's hard to be mad at her because I understand she's trying to prevent violating his rights and giving him a reason to appeal. But you know, someone who's facing multiple life in prison without the possibility of early release. They're going to appeal on whatever grounds they think they can. Now, granted, an appeals court's probably going to laugh him out of court. A Supreme Court, a state Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court are probably going to laugh about this. And it's going to go nowhere. So do what you got to do. You've given him every opportunity to be a better lawyer, to represent himself better, to conduct himself in a professional manner. But he refuses to do it. He keeps making a mockery of the court. He's badgering witnesses now. That's one thing I didn't bring up. He had another mother of four on the stand where he struck all four of her children, and they had to have serious surgeries. In fact, they had a GoFundMe. But shout out to Nick Recada's Locals Chat, who organized and raised over $30,000 on the lady's GoFundMe, and now the GoFundMe has been shut down for donations because they reached their goal. But he has this woman on the stand, and he's talking to her like she's ridiculous. This mother of four children who were seriously injured by this monster's car. And Jennifer Doro's just letting him do it. And the prosecution is letting him do it because they know it's making him look like a monster and making him look ridiculous in front of the jury. So, Judge Doro, your inability to pull a trigger, your inability to control your courtroom, and continuing to put the families of Waukesha through repeated tragedy, the likes that these Sandy Hook, Newtown people, I mean, they lost their children, but here it is 15 years later and they're still acting like they're owed trillions of dollars. No, these families here, they got to face this monster in court. And it's sickening. Where's their trillions? No, instead they get their judge treating their kids, maiming and murder with soft gloves because they're afraid of abusing his rights and afraid of appeal points. Fuck the appeals court. It's time to tase this guy. It's time to shut this shit down. Stop letting him just ramble, especially to the jury, especially to the witnesses, and especially to the judge herself. Now, he wants to get up there and testify in his own case, and he wants to ramble, then let him fucking ramble. But don't let him argue with the judge. Don't let him argue with victims. And don't let him argue with his ex-girlfriend. Badger witnesses. And don't let him continue to interrupt the prosecutor. Take control of your damn courtroom, Judge Doro. Basil Hayden's dark rye. Very spicy. So yeah, Judge Doro, you get the asshole of the week. Enjoy the butt plug. No, I don't really send people butt plugs. I'm just... It upset me. I was almost in tears hearing these victims talk from the stand about the tragedies they went through. And then to see him make that face, that mean mug, at the judge after pulling these fucking shenanigans. This manlet is 5'8" and has fucking short arms shorter than Henry Cavill. And he's done these rap videos and he wants to look all hard. By the way, he's done these rap videos while standing in front of this SUV that, spoiler alert, is a 2010 and is registered to his mama, and he doesn't even have a valid driver's license. Yeah, this is the hip hop idea of success for this man. Bop 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 bop. I'd play one of his rap videos right now, but quite frankly, I can't stand look at him right now. But yeah, he wants to be all hard, and he's... We'll see how hard he is when he has to go to prison with, in Wisconsin with the likes of Theodore Edgecombe and Chandler Halderson. I kid. But, this is where we're at now, I hope he gets put in general population, because this fucking manlet 5'8" tough guy fucking, I do what I want. My mama does what I tell her. Like, she gonna be here. Like, if you have that attitude on the Gen Pop cell block, being 5'8" with short arms, shit. Good luck, sir. So I think he's gonna get what he deserves. Anyway, we've went over an hour now. I'll go ahead and start wrapping up. This has been a good week. It's been a crazy week. I didn't get to the 2 topics I told you I'd get to, but we did get a review, an unexpected review of Black Adam, and that's like I said, it was a pretty good movie. I'm glad I went and saw it today. I literally came back. I went for Black Adam, went and got a couple of groceries, came straight here, put the groceries in the fridge, came straight to my computer and gave you that fresh review, freshly seeing the movie. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the other stuff. If you did enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up below. Let me know what parts of the show you liked, what parts of the show you didn't like, by leaving a comment. If there's something I could be doing better or a take you would rather have had, leave a comment below. I'm willing to chit-chat with you. Come back this potentially Wednesday. I'm going for Wednesday this week. Come back Wednesday. If something changes and it's Tuesday, I'll let you know on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter if you want to know, or follow me here on Facebook by clicking the bell for notifications and clicking that subscribe button. Those 2 things will let you know when I have live streamed on the subscription button and when I'm going to live stream on the notification bell. So chat, comment, hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the last thing, please share this off platform and let other people know I exist. Kind of get this going in the community, right? Get this going in the community. Get other people watching this show. Get other people drinking whiskey with me. By the way, if you have a whiskey recommendation you'd like to see me taste and react to, leave that in the comments below. But anyway, so that's my show for tonight. Thank you for coming by on this lovely Saturday evening. Usually, I try to do it earlier in the late afternoon on Saturday, but like I said, I was watching a good movie. So, catch you next time, Wednesday, and then again next Saturday, here on Mild's Culture Plate. Thank you very much, y'all. Y'all have a good night. Peace.